by not having a personal brand, that is a personal brand. You might think that you're telling people that, oh, you value your privacy. No, that the way people read that is you're out of touch, you're old. How can you even say that you're part of the upcoming trend or that you're in tune in business without a personal brand? You can't. Somebody Googles you, you don't show up for the right things, you don't matter.
All right, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Story Lab. I'm excited today because we have our guest, Adam Torres, here, and he's the co-founder of Mission Matters Media. And I actually want to talk to you quickly about how you made the switch from finance to media, because that's an interesting switch. And so how did you get started in media?
Man, Jonathan, so first off, thank you for having me here. Loving the hat. Come on, man. We're going to talk about personal brand today. And let me tell you, that hat and that setup you have, memorable. I've done hundreds, actually. I've done thousands of interviews. You're the first one with that brand, man. Congrats. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
To answer your question, though, in terms of making my switch from finance to media, first off, people thought I was crazy. Like, I'll throw that out there. There's no way, no how. I managed a little under $200 million. I was in that business for almost 14 years, and I'm in Los Angeles, so a lot of people come here to be famous, be in front of the camera. That wasn't my case. I came here to be a financial advisor and to manage money. And when I started my own business, I launched a book, and it was called Money Matters. It was my first book. I wrote it myself. I didn't even want to write a book. Like, my mentor said, you got to do it. I'm like, broke people write books. I didn't understand story. I didn't understand branding. I didn't understand helping other people and using your story to do that. Like, I was a baby. I grew up in finance. I didn't know. All I knew was numbers. I knew the markets. I knew those type of things. But any of the rest, I didn't know. So I do my first book. I put it out, and some strange things start happening. All of a sudden, I'm getting this different type of attention. I'm getting booked for speaking gigs. I'm traveling. I was on a speaking tour as far away as China. Like, that's crazy. How are people finding me? Cold on LinkedIn. Like, people were literally messaging me and offering me opportunities, and I was like, this is different. Before the book, that stuff wasn't happening. I was paying to speak. I wasn't getting paid to speak before the book. But when I implemented and when the podcast came into play, that's when the world changed. It was like, whoa, like, number one, I love doing it. Love doing interviews, love helping other people, love hearing about their stories. I was already doing that as a financial advisor. I was on phones. A lot of my clients were business owners, and we'd have these great conversations. And I'd always be thinking like, wow, to let other people have the opportunity to sit in on this meeting would be amazing. And so that's where the podcast eventually got launched, and it grew from there. And as it grew, I made a decision. It was like, which way does it go? Like, I wasn't blessed with that. I don't know, that Elon Musk gene or whatever it is, that DNA that lets you do all these different things. I don't got it, Jonathan. I could do one thing pretty well, and I beat my head against the wall until I get better at doing that one thing. Hence why I've done over 6,000 podcast interviews and interviews in general. And I did over 1,500 this year in 2025. Next year, I'll do another 1,500 or 2,000. Trying to get better. So I'll beat my head against a wall to get better, but I can do like one thing. So that's what let me transition into media. Eventually went full time, exited the other business. I haven't been licensed in almost 9 years. Going on 10 years this December, I believe. That's going to be our anniversary.
Very good. So what I love that you said, because this is something that I tell my clients all the time, is that you didn't know anything about storytelling. You didn't know anything about personal branding. You learned it.
I was anti. I thought everybody that did it was BSing. I was anti. Not only did I not know, I was against it. I was even anti. I would go further to say in the beginning. In the beginning,
you were anti. So why should people, now that you're not anti, why should people build a personal brand?
Well, the first thing is you don't really, now in retrospect, you don't really have a choice. Like, and I know some people are going to hear that and they're going to be like, oh, Adam, I got a choice and this and that. What they don't understand is that by not having a personal brand, that is a personal brand. By not being on social media, that is a personal brand. You know what you're telling people? You may think that you're telling people that, oh, you value your privacy. No, that the way people read that is you're out of touch, you're old. How can you even say that you're part of the upcoming trend or that you're in tune in business without a personal brand? You can't. You could say it to your friends, your buddies, other people around you, but to the world, no, that's not the way you read that. Somebody Googles you, you don't show up, you don't matter. Not relevant. I mean, you might be to your friends, your family. I'm not talking about as people. As people, that's a whole different conversation. I'm talking about as a personal brand. And if you think that by staying outside of that lines or outside of that game that you're helping anybody, I'm sorry, you're not. You're hurting yourself and you can't catch up on personal brand. That's the thing. Like if you haven't done anything on your personal brand in the last 10, 20 years and you're a senior executive, consider that time lost. Like, but it doesn't mean that don't start. It doesn't mean don't start now. But what I mean by that is you can't go back in time and publish a thought leader piece on Forbes or an article from 10 years ago that somebody can search. Knowing what you know now to not be building a personal brand is the definition of insanity. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And now when they're building their personal brand, obviously this is Story Lab, so we're going to go into the stories. Yeah. How do people use their stories and their personal brand in a way that's going to help them be seen, not in a way that's going to hurt them?
First thing I'd say is authenticity. You don't want to, so I teach a personal brand accelerator for full transparency for everybody listening. And the first thing that my students normally come in and they're thinking, and normally my student's going to be somebody that's going to be a senior level executive. It's going to be somebody that probably hasn't done too much. And they're scared or were scared to do it because they think that they have to all of a sudden be doing selfie videos or dancing on TikTok or who knows. Like people get these ideas in their head based on what they have to do. But what they don't realize is that what they want to start with is authenticity. You don't have to do something you're uncomfortable with when it comes to building your personal brand. You can be you have everybody, I don't care who it is, has a story. Everybody has an expertise. Everybody has a journey. So finding out the correct mixture of that to get your expected result is an art. I agree with that, but it starts with authenticity. And so once you're thinking about your story, what matters and what's authentic, the next thing you do is you gotta think about what your goal in sharing your story is. So I'd say that's where you start. First, make sure anything you do is authentic. If you're cringing or anything else like that, other people will too. And what's the definition of that? If for some people it's authentic to, launch a show, it's authentic to start doing selfie videos, doing all these other things. Probably if you're watching this and you've never done some of that out there stuff, it's probably not your authentic brand, because if it was, you would already be doing it and you wouldn't be listening to this. No offense. You'd be like, Adam, I get it. You would have already tuned off.
Yep. And I get that. And, I actually just built a collective of female coaches who were in corporate and are now trying to show up online. And
I love that.
They're absolutely in that place where they're like, I don't know what to do. I feel cringe with everything. And, just getting them to tell their story, where they came from, their experience. I mean, they've got corporate experience that goes for years.
Yeah.
That's where I came from too. So
and that nobody knows about. That's the thing. It's in their head. Maybe their immediate, people around them know, but people like that get in trouble. Like if their company closes, changes, whatever else, and now they're out there even just looking, not saying it's your individual group, but they're out there looking for a job, and all of a sudden they've never had to look for a job in the last 10, 15 years of their life, and the entire market changed. They can't even get somebody to look at their resume because why? Not because they're not amazing. It's because AI is taking part over that part of HR. So if you don't have that relationship or if you don't have that brand, they're not even get a shot.
Yep. It's amazing to me because I left corporate 7 years ago after 18 years with Barnes & Noble College Bookstores, and it was impossible for me to find a job. Having 18 years of experience has certain expectation. So I went and did this on my own, and it worked really well for me. But it would have been nice to be able to do something, and I know how they feel. I got downsized, I got all this stuff, so it's scary. I get that. Yeah. But so how do you pinpoint a story that's going to resonate with your audience? You're trying to figure out which one of your stories to tell.
Yeah. I don't think there's one. I like to think of it, and I've always said this. I don't know what if it's a real term or not, but I have like pocket stories. I number one, whenever I'm looking at an audience, you got to think about your audience. I'll take it from the speaker standpoint for a moment. If you're speaking and you're looking at an audience, you want to know who's in the crowd. That's why I say the goal is so important. But let's say that you do know who the crowd is, who you're telling this story for. Then you want to have a couple of them. So the one that I just told you just now, the personal brand story. Now there's a way to tell that particular story and how I made the transition into media that is a little bit more on the media side and on the growth side. There's a way that I tell that exact same story when I have a heavily Christian audience, and this audience may be Christian, I don't know, but that's and I go a little bit more into detail on the very specific moment that I got the calling and I understood that it was time to make the transition from finance to media. I have a really specific Christian story that I use for that one. I have a finance in corporate America way to tell that exact same story that I told you that leans heavier on finance and numbers and media in terms of talking about trends. I have a way to tell. So there's a bunch of different ways to tell that story. I have a way to tell that story for marketing. People that if I'm in front of a media, if I'm doing a keynote in front of a audience full of media executives, where I can tell that exact same story, and I can tell that story talking about trends in media and why podcasting is so important. So I probably told that exact same story that I just told you maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 different ways to tell that exact same story, highlighting other things. But the key here is you got to know your audience. If you know your audience, or if you know who you're trying to reach with that exact message, it's great. And for everybody listening, that's worried about, this is what people normally tell me when I tell them this. They're like, yeah, but what if somebody heard the story before, this or that? I said, are you kidding me? That's the best thing ever. If somebody would be like, I remember that guy told that story, then you know what they start calling you? Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Oprah. They've been telling the same story 30, 40 years, and we love it. And if I'm in the audience hearing Tony or one of these greats tell their story, I'm like, give me the popcorn. I can't wait. I get to hear it again. It's amazing. It almost feels good, like a nice comfy pair of shoes when I hear Les Brown tell a story about his mom and Mamie and all the other things he did and losing his house and and the bad things that he did because he didn't know he made a bad investment and there was tax lien on there. How many times have we heard that story? If you're a Les Brown fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I'm saying that. He's told that story 1,000 times minimum, and I love it every time I hear it again.
Yeah, and I love that because one of the things that I tell my people is, one, they've got to repeat their message because they need to be known for something. And that's how you get known for something, is repeating that message. And I love that you kind of talked about what I call a story file, which is all the stories that you tell, and the different lengths that you have them in and the different audiences that you tell them to. So I love that.
So length, I got to throw that out there. I love this. I do it talking about like, okay, if you're on TV and you got like a 1 minute spot in between something, you have to be able to tell that story within that 1 minute, and you have to be able to drop the couple of things you want to drop in there, no matter what question they ask you. If you're on a longer format, then you have to be able to do it for that. If you're on an hour podcast versus a half an hour podcast versus a 20-minute podcast, you have to be able to fill all of those with that same story. That's advanced stuff, Jonathan. Obviously, you and I know that. But here's the thing. If you can do and you can convey emotion and get your story out in that little TV spot where you got a minute, maybe more, if you're lucky, amazing. If you can do it and you can elongate and build color and you can build layers of complexity and you can add emotion into that story in front of 10,000 people, you know what they call you? Rich.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. And I sit there and I tell them all the way down to the 8 seconds that we have in short form video. You've got to get a message out in 8 seconds. And that's hard. That is definitely hard, but
that's the hardest for me. I'll tell you who taught me that the first time, and he gave me the tip, and this is years ago. So I used to do a bunch of videos for Ty Lopez way back in the day, and for their social media accelerators and all the other things. Like I was one of the instructors and just did a bunch of collabs and stuff like that way back before we called it collabs. And he taught me the first lesson I had on a 15-second video. He taught me, and I give him credit for this, is he says the trick with the 15-second video is you got to have the hook in the beginning, and you got to start basic, but you can't stay basic too long. You have to go from basic, you have to hook, go from basic to complex, and by the end of that video, you have to go to complex as fast as possible, but without losing your audience, because that's going to give you the widest audience. Because the 15-second video, if you start off too complex in the beginning of it, then you lose the audience that doesn't follow. If you stay there too long, then you lose the audience that already knows that information but wants to see what else you have to offer. So in that 15-second video, you got to do a whole lot. And I worked for years on trying to on doing the 15-second video.
Yeah. Yeah. And really it has to be a dynamic video no matter how you cut it. And that is tough.
I'm still working at it, by the way. I'm not saying they're good. Go to Instagram if you're watching this. Ask Adam Torres. I'm the shameless plug. I'm like, Ask Adam Torres on IG. I'm not saying my videos are good. I'm just saying I'm working on them.
We're working on them. And that's the good thing. That's the other thing. We can always work. We can always be better no matter what it is we're doing. So
love it.
I got one last question for you.
Yeah.
So you're an entrepreneur and you want to reach outside of your immediate sphere of influence. How do you do that? What stories do you tell? How do you increase that reach, that impact that you want to have?
Start a podcast. 100%. That's it. So you got to start a podcast, period. That's the only way to do it in today's day and age. Like if you're especially if you're trying to reach up. So specifically, if you're trying to reach up, like why should some really experience, like I don't care what level you're at. I'll speak for myself. I'll throw it out there. So I got a decent sized little company. We're doing okay. I still want to meet and leverage and meet other people that are higher than me always. And I want to meet people that are doing interesting things. And this deal isn't inked yet, but let's just say, knock on wood, it should be happening based on the team behind it. Next year, I should be interviewing 3 African presidents of countries. That can't happen without a podcast. What are you going to be like? Be like, hey, Mr. President, can you be my mentor? No, you got to have something of value to give people.
Yeah.
And so when you start a podcast, you have something of value to give people. And the interesting thing about a podcast is that it attracts other people, and now you have a platform, and now you have, I don't care if you got 5 listeners, now you have a platform. Now you have something you can offer other people. Now, is everybody going to want your platform or what you have to offer? No, but that's okay. If you're giving away a free interview and they don't want that, then you weren't going to get to talk to them anyway.
Offer it up. And the worst thing is you just don't ask. You'll never know unless you ask. So this gives you the opportunity to ask and connect with people. Absolutely love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing such great tips in a really quick episode here. Is there anything that you want to share that we might have missed, or where they can find you if they want to reach out to you? Again, I'm going to circle back on launch your own show. Launching and being in the podcast space has absolutely changed my life. I'm not just saying that because I'm a guy that does production on podcasts. I mean, use a company like ours. Do it yourself. My first podcast, it took me like 10 minutes to launch. I went on there. It was crude. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even edited. I did my first 300 episodes, not even edited. Guess what? We grew an audience. It's okay. So if you got money and you can invest, obviously hire an agency like ours. If you don't and you're like, do it yourself, it's okay. I'd rather you do it yourself, get out there, stumble a little, learn, than to sit on the sidelines and not do anything. So launch your show. If you want to learn, connect with me, Ask Adam Torres on Instagram is the easiest way to do it. There's a link there, a Linktree link. And if you click on that, you'll see our agency. You'll see a ton of free resources, books. There's all kinds of stuff there. You can go down an endless rabbit hole. And if you got a show idea you want to pitch, DM me, shoot me a DM. So Ask Adam Torres on Instagram. Right. Awesome. Thank you very much again for being here.